Hello, this is Matthew Chan. Welcome to this segment of the ELI update, and this is a very special update for two reasons. The very first reason, of course, is Oscar Michelen has not been with us. He hasn't been on video for about, 6 months, and unless you watched the earlier segment, this is the first time you've seen him, like I said, in 6 months. The other part is I reeled Oscar in for a little bit of time. Now, just for those of you who are just coming into this segment, Oscar is staying into the evening. He actually has a big, long case. So we're going to sort of power through this. But what we're going to talk about is the Linda Ellis, Linda Lyrics - poem extortion scheme. So, and we're going to talk about the forums. And believe it or not, this thing has only been 2 weeks. And there's more. It is the second busiest forum of all time. Can you believe it? In 2 weeks? It's blown away the whole Image Line and George Riddick one. Remember how crazy that was? And how outrageous people were?
Look how that ended up for George.
Yes. And so, but even with George and Image Line, that took an extended period of time to get that new post. So, So, Oscar, tell me what you think of this. You're coming kind of new. We're all new, but you're even newer in some ways. What do you make of all this?
I've been following what's been happening. I actually, as you know, communicated to Linda Ellis and tried to see if we could, maybe discuss this on a rational level. And
she reached out to you. She reached out to you.
She reached out to all of us.
Right. I would beg to differ, but anyway.
Well, she sent an email out, and she sent an email to me and said,
but you're the only one that got it, Oscar. You're the only one that got it. Oh, yeah. You're the only one that got an email because I'm so hard to find and BuddhaPie is so hard to find. We're fighting under a rock.
That trend hasn't changed. That they don't contact you. I get all the contacts. That's great. But so she did. She sent me an email, and we were actually supposed to talk yesterday night.
Yeah.
And then because I guess some of our posters posted things on her Twitter page.
It was me, actually.
She said, "Look, okay." She said, "There's no point."
3 tweets.
She said, "There's no point in having a discussion, and thank you for your efforts." It was a very congenial email, but I don't mind saying here what I said there about it. But it's part of the growth of the ELI webpage that we're not limited to digital image living anymore, and that every time people find new ways to overprice the value of a copyright infringement, they can come to the site, tell us about what's happening, and then all of a sudden have an army of folks, on their side responding and telling them how to help and what they should do and researching the issue and coming up with strategies. I think it was incredible, absolutely incredible, the speed and thoroughness of the response to, was it April Brown's the first one who posted, right?
Yes, April Brown started it, and it was like a little small mention in the Legal Controversies Forum, and I think I may have made a reply, but what was
right, so why don't we just...
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, what we should do is just a very quick little synopsis of the issue is...
well, I would, just for the expedient of time, just because your time is so valuable, the people are going to have to look at the other stuff. I would prefer, if it's okay with you, to lead, talk about uniquely yours, the legal issues, if that's okay.
Sure.
Well, let me start off first. You didn't have to give your time. What was it about this that made you to decide to volunteer like an hour of your time to talk to her? I thought that was very impressive and surprising.
Well, first of all, a lot of my IP work is on behalf of artists. So, I talk to artists all the time, both new and unheard of, and internationally acclaimed and well-known, and the vast majority are somewhere in between.
Right.
So it's something that is of interest to me, number one, professionally, Number two, it's
Did you want her
what
as a
I
client?
do. Well, I would never say no to a client, but I would never do what, I wouldn't engage it in the way that she's doing.
Oh, that much is clear. Yeah, that was pretty clear.
Right. I mean, I would certainly, be willing to enforce her copyright. Let me just explain real quickly.
Sure.
Because I agree very, very much with a lot of what she says. In representing artists, I can tell you that, and wannabe artists, I can tell you that it is extraordinarily difficult to have success. Okay? It's the hardest thing in the world is to become successful in the field of entertainment. And if you were then going to categorize the difficulty of having, let's say, national awareness of a work of art, poetry is somewhere near the bottom. Not because of its value. To me, its intrinsic value should be near the top. But just the fact. Stop somebody on the street and ask them to tell you 3 poems they know by heart, and they're going to do the alphabet, twinkle, twinkle, little star. I mean, that's about it. That's why you ask for 3, because they can't get past
that. Roses are red, violets are blue, right?
Yeah, that's 2 lines, right? So I can understand how if you write a frickin' poem that millions of people are touched by, and let's be honest, whatever you think about this poem does a tremendous job as an artist of putting together in very few words and with a very intelligent visual, let's say a visual mark, some really, extraordinary feelings. Yes, it's like a Hallmark card. But you know what? Hallmark makes billions of freaking dollars. I wish I could write Hallmark cards. Okay, so
there is a tremendous achievement.
Yeah. It's a tremendous achievement. It's nothing short of a tremendous artistic achievement, regardless of what you think of it. It's a pop poem that I've heard at 2 separate funerals before I even got involved in this. Spoke to my wife about it. She can't even count how many times she's heard this poem. And it's a moneymaker. It's not just a poem. It's her trademark. And one of the things I said to Miss Ellis in my email is she should not just copyright it. She should trademark it. Because it becomes synonymous with her products, which there's a dash movie, there's a dash book, there's dash clothes, whatever it is. So let's start with that. It has tremendous value to her, and she would be foolish not to hunt down and defend anyone who's giving it away for free. Now, we know that the next word is but.
No, but. I knew where you were going to go. I know you, so I didn't want you to say anything. I know where you were going.
Exactly.
But go ahead.
But that does not justify scaring the crap out of people who...
That's pretty blunt for you, Oscar.
Yeah, who used it innocently. Well, only because I've gotten a lot of contact from people, not just April, and we've seen what's happened on the forums. We've learned from all these different organizations that have been hounded, over their innocuous and innocent use of this poem. And, it just needs some perspective. And I suggested to her that writing a letter that said, guess what? I own that poem. I worked hard for that poem. And you can't just put it up there without either paying me or at least attributing it to me and linking to where you can find the author's version and the author's website, and send me $200 for the statutory minimum infringement, because I do believe that you weren't aware of this. If they don't take it down, now you've got willful infringement, and I think you can sue them for $5,000 to $7,500 for willful infringement of that poem. And if they do take it down, but don't respond to the 200, I also think it's okay to say, hey, listen, guess what? I'm not going to go away. Now it's 400 because now I'm putting more time into trying to get paid. And by the way, because I have registered this work of art, I can get legal fees. So, wake up and don't be foolish. I think that's all perfectly within her rights.
No.
But sending out letters, $3,500, and then, in Miss Brown's case, they're tracking down her husband and contacting her husband at work. I mean, what are we talking about here? This was completely overboard, uncalled for, in my opinion, over the top, and yes, you ready? Extortionate.
Well, let me ask you this. Okay, let's assume the worst, okay? Let's assume that in April's case, there was infringement. We don't really know. We weren't there. We got her word for it, okay? So, but the way her story goes is 3 days. All right, so let's give benefit of the doubt. Let's assume it was up for a whole week. Are you saying that she should have paid $200 or what? Or is that just it's a stated amount on the letter?
Right. No, I mean, if she could prove that it was up for a week on a website that's not commercial and didn't involve the resale of the poem, I think ceasing and desisting is sufficient.
Well, from what I've been told, a lot of these, are, I mean, there's probably a mixed use of these sharing, and it's sort of a tough situation. But, I always believe that the person has the discretion. Like you said, I mean, I took what you said to mean what you would write in a letter, but that's not to say they actually have to say, well, you better pay $200. Well, if they offer $100, to me that's sort of a good spirit thing. You may not have gotten the $200. Yeah. But I'm thinking, take the $100. They've learned a lesson and move on. I don't know. Am I off base?
No, you're not off base. And I think particularly for someone who had it on for a couple of days, that, and 11 people visited your website in that period of time, that's what that infringement is worth. Now, and that does not devalue the poem, by any means. And, Miss Ellis needs to try to find the middle ground where, this kind of self-promotion, or not even self-promotion, promotion by others, third-party promotion, might not necessarily be, the worst thing in the world for her. And particularly if she ever comes around to doing a second poem that can touch, as many people as the Dash, that could be, even more lucrative, for her. But the bottom line is she has a right to defend her copyright in the work and her trademark, and she has the right to seek monetary damages if she feels that people were taking advantage of her.
Right.
Our whole point has always been to have that perspective that you talk about and that discretion, that when you see someone who just likes the poem, puts it up there, you say, hey, you know what? That's great. I'm glad you appreciate that, but I wrote that. I came up with that. Can you link to my site? Can you attribute it to me? And then I'm okay.
Right.
And then you start getting people linking back to your site and buying your plaques and buying your book and buying your movie.
Now, I'm going to, one of the things that was really important at least for me, for you to speak on was to the law, because, I mean, you are uniquely qualified in the ELI forums to talk to that effect. And right. So I think we are being very, very fair for you to say all these things. Now, having established the law, the legal aspect of it, would you say, because you've worked with media, you've worked with multiple entertainment clients, I mean, you're out on the internet yourself, would you say that sometimes the law and what is a practical matter doesn't always jive? I mean, I'm thinking to myself, yes, she can do this, but at what cost? I mean, you are going after your fan base. You're punishing them, or at least a good portion of them, for loving your work. I mean, if you do that enough and the word gets out, I'm thinking that sort of goes against what you were trying to achieve, especially the nature of the poem, the message within the poem. It's sort of like hugely divergent, and I think that's why people are just all fired up. Versus,
yeah, I mean, part of the problem is the message of the poem is not to chase the cash and worry about how you live your dash. And it seems a little hypocritical.
It is.
To now come out with a sledgehammer on people, and maybe she needs to read her own poem, and realize what people might say about how she's spending her time. I see what people could say is the hypocrisy. And by the way, as an aside, and all it did was open itself up to some creativity by Lucia, and was it SG and a couple of other guys other posters just put up wonderful parodies of the poem. I mean, it was just too easy not to have some folks do it. And,
we have an alternative to the poem now, actually. It's called The Dash Between by a legitimate poet in Utah. So he's offered
Is that right?
it. Yeah, it's called The Dash Between. It's not a parody. It is an honest-to-goodness poem, heartfelt poem about the dash, but it's his take on it. So it's sort of interesting how that's morphed.
Did that come on the forum?
Yes, just today. Yeah, you've been busy all day, and you said you were busy since 7:30 with your cases, so you wouldn't have seen that. That's how fast this has moved. In fact, I have an interview with him, just so you know, with the poet, and he did consult his copyright attorney before putting that up, and he's going to explain his position and why he decided to offer it up and all that. So, yeah, this train is still moving, Oscar.
That should be good. I mean, it really should be a parody because that would make it a fair use, and he needs to be careful about a derivative, making a derivative from the original. But that here endeth the lesson, as we say. But the what I think struck the chord was really how well spoken and eloquent and clear April was in the video that she posted when she went on the radio station.
That was some
explaining
interview,
her. It was tremendous. And it explained her position, and it explained how copyright trolling works by trying to strike fear in the heart of people who don't know the law and believe what's written in these letters, that they're going to go to jail or they're going to be found, guilty to the tune of $150,000, or that because they put up 3 lines of a poem for 7 days, that they could owe $7,500 in damages. That's a tremendous amount of money to the average person. And for them to see that and then pay $2,500 and think they got away with murder, it is overbearing and extortionate and overreaching. And, if she doesn't like it, then, she needs to try and keep pressing her claim, but I think it's going to end up becoming much worse for her. As you can see from when you start Googling the poem and her name, we come up just as much as she comes up now.
Yeah.
And our content, if you look at the content on it, it's harsh, it's critical, it's sarcastic, it's all of that, but it's also accurate. No one is saying anything on there that can't be supported.
Well, the one thing that I do know, even though we've talked about 75, and I guess I've heard rumblings that Linda thinks that we're exaggerating, what is not an exaggeration is the fact that I did acquire a copy of an actual settlement and signed agreement for $2,500. That has been paid out. And, we redacted all the information, as you well know. That's what we typically do. But the guys, submitted that in confidence to us for us to post. He wanted us to prove it, that this is not fiction. This is not an exaggeration. So, so if you don't like the $7,500, I've got hardcore proof that it's $2,500. And to most people,
and
sharing that poem is just, it's going to make people crazy having to pay that.
And by the way, it doesn't really take much to know that if they reached an agreement at $2,500, that one side started higher and one other side started lower, and they reached $2,500 as a compromise. That's what a settlement is.
Yeah. And
her letters speak for themselves, and her claim. And I believe Ms. Brown, I think she said she was demanded $7,500. Excuse me.
It's okay.
So, I think that we can support the claims that we made. And I think Ms. Ellis missed a tremendous opportunity.
I did too. I'm thinking she should have spoken with. Yeah, I think she should have spoken with you. You were going to give some free advice, and actually, you posted some of that information. I thought was sort of a nice guideline of her what a decent, I guess, a reasonable copyright enforcement program. I mean, but she's going to have to sort of filter out all the other stuff and see the logic in it.
Right, and also, you know, again, I commend her for trying to protect her copyrighted interest in that poem. That's never been the issue. That's never going to be the issue. If she had come to see me, I would say absolutely. Let's hire a company to track down every use and send an email and send a letter or send a fax, spend some money, and the serial infringers, the ones who don't go away or do it willfully, will go after all the way. And the receipts that we get from the worst people will allow us to be nicer to the innocent people.
Right. And
this way we're not burning our fan base. We're just going after malicious serial infringers who nobody's going to care about.
Yeah.
You know, if we started hearing from folks who said, oh, Miss Brown who said Miss Ellis wanted $7,500 from me, and they find out that they're reproducing the poem and selling them on plaques, Eli's not going to be supportive of that person.
Right. Absolutely.
Eli's going to say, you're a copyright infringer. You're a thief.
Yes. I mean, we've got people that's come by, and we just sort of look at it. It's like, well, we do defend extortionate, but I mean, gosh, who's worse? You or you or the extortionist? I was like, this is very hard to defend you, even for us. You know, in some of these cases, it's tough. And well, I do want to make a comment on April Brown. I don't know how you feel, but you know, I've talked to April Brown a number of times. I know you guys haven't formally talked yet, but I'm sure that day is coming soon, giving that she's going to give another radio interview, and supposedly she's going to mention us, which is nice. But I really am concerned about Linda, because I sort of know where my limits are, and as long as she backs off of Eli, I mean, I'll let the forums go, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. But I think she really has pushed April too far. And Linda doesn't get that. I mean, you and I can't control April. Am I right? I mean, she can't, you know, we can't control April.
Nor should we.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Nor should we, because if what she's saying is true, and those steps were really taken, and her use was what she says it is, I think that was completely an inappropriate response. So I don't think there's any reason to restrain her. I also think, listening to that radio interview and seeing her posts, that she's, again, clear, well-spoken, and accurate. So there's no point in stopping somebody who's being honest and accurate.
Yeah. Well, I know this is going to probably make some people cringe a little bit, but I actually feel a little sorry for Linda a little bit. I know you're sort of winking. You look at your eyebrows. Look at your eyebrows.
No.
My eyebrows. Skepticism. But
my eyebrows do it because I lost all my hair. So
I do feel a little bit sorry for her. But Jesus, she sort of brought it on herself, for Christ's sake. You know?
Well, no, it's not just that. I feel that you know, the internet is wonderful, but it's also diminished the value of art. Let's just be honest.
Hey, I'm one of those guys. I used to put out books for $20-$30. Now I got to put them out for $9.99.
Right.
But I'm going with it.
And for free.
Right. You know, exactly. Right. Look how much content you and I give away for free.
I do see the concern. You know, from when Napster first came out.
Yes.
Look at how Metallica got attacked for saying, you know, Napster's copyright these. I was like, hey, you're uncool. And they're like, uncool? We're going to be broke. And the end result of that has been that artists no longer make money off of their songs in the way that they used to. And that if they don't tour, they don't eat.
That's correct.
And it's caused the consolidation of the music industry.
Correct.
Because of the internet. And what's funny is these big companies were the first ones that started, you know, crying about it. But in reality, it's helped consolidate the industry for them. Now, the flip side of that is it's also easy to put music out, and there's a greater variety of music and art now than it has ever been available. And, without a doubt, more types of music, different genres, subgenres. There's all kinds of scenes going out there. People could write books and post it on Amazon by themselves. One of the best sellers is some young girl. She's 21 years old from the Midwest. She got a vampire series that she posted herself, initially for free, and now she sells hundreds of thousands of copies at like 99 cents a copy. So there's the good and the bad. But it's made art more accessible, but it's also lowered its value. So I fear for artists like that. I understand their concerns about that, but we have to learn to adapt and to the new marketplace. Just like they said, television would kill radio, and cable will kill the network, and DVR will kill both of them. And now it's always something that's out there, but good art seems to survive and still make money. But it's a definitely changing environment. I definitely feel sorry for folks who create art. It's a very different environment.
Well, I don't want to take too much of your time and talk about the media. I mean, that's a whole different subject all itself. I mean, I wanted you to talk about the media, and, maybe we'll get you back and we can talk more about what people should do in this element. But, I mean, I have a lot of thoughts on it, obviously, but in any case. Now, do you have any other issues of concern or any other things that you think that we need to be aware of? I mean, I feel there's a lot of parallels between the dash poem and extortion with the image extortion. A lot of parallels. And would you like to talk about, like, your defense letter program since you've agreed to do it? Anything you want to say on that?
Right. I mean, I would engage, if someone wanted to retain us and they got, a letter from Miss Ellis, I would look at what their use is. We would write a letter back to Miss Ellis's company or whomever issues the letters on her behalf, because it's not always her.
Yes.
And try to engage in a reasoned dialogue about the value of the infringement. Okay? Even from the beginning, the similarities with the Getty Images issue, with the digital image issue in general, is that, okay, an infringement occurred. What was infringed? How was it infringed? Did the other party benefit? Was the copyright holder harmed? In what way were they harmed? Let's figure out what it's worth. Sometimes it's worth zero, and you walk away with cease and desist. And other times it's worth trying to bankrupt the other person. It all depends on the method of use and the nature of the use.
I got you.
So, that's what needs to be learned here. And I got to tell you, if there's a core theme to ELI, that's the core theme. I think that's the fundamental thing that flows through all of the various forums is, hey, have some perspective, be fair, and treat people based upon what they did and what it's worth. And that's all. You could look through every single forum on all the various different issues. That's always the running theme to ELI.
The thing about it is the vast majority of even ELI's existence is based, we came in existence because of the irrationality, the disproportionateness. I mean, with me, I would have been $200, boom, here goes your check, off I go. ELI would have never been born. But, I mean, this story, forget about me for a second. I mean, just that story, recurring theme over and over and over. Like April Brown. I can't speak for her, but I'm sure there was a big difference between $7,500 and $200. I mean, I know she says that she wouldn't pay one penny and all that, but I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, if it was handled differently, I'm not sure April Brown would have been so fired up where she's on a mission now. I mean, she just hates this copyright trolling thing.
There would have been no mission over $200. I'm telling you, because she can't, because of what happened to her, she can't see herself on the day before she got the letter, right? Everything she's seeing now, she's filtered from the experience that she's been through.
Well, that's true. And she's got reports, people coming in reporting her about how much they paid, and this only fed into her. So it's like a little mini cause with her. So what are you going to do? She's fired up. She certainly is.
But if on the day before she got the overbearing letter, she got a letter from Miss Ellis or whatever and said, hey, Here's my copyright registration. This is central to my business. You use this. You should be aware that the fact that you did not know that this was copyrighted and belonged to somebody is not a defense to damages, and is not a defense to liability, but maybe a defense to damages. Show me the use that you made, and if it was an innocent infringement for a limited period of time, this can go away for $200. She's going to look at that. She'll respond to that letter and either pay the $200, negotiate down, or somewhere in the middle, whatever it is. But it's a whole different thing. If the tactic is, this is a fan of mine, let me educate my fan. She's not stealing my work intentionally. She's not profiting off my work. She enjoys my work. Let me just explain to her that that is how I feed my family, pay my mortgage, and succeed. I think it takes a whole different approach, and it's more in line with the theme of the poem. I don't mean that sarcastically. I mean that 100% sincerely. It's living by your words.
Okay. Well, very good. Well, Oscar, thank you so much. Thank you for
Always
so much for staying late into the evening, and I'm sorry you have to work so late tonight. But I can promise
I'm in trial, so I'm still going.
Okay, I can promise you our audience is going to be very happy to hear from you. Like I said, hopefully we won't have to wait another 6 months. If we wait another 6 months, it'll be Christmas before we do it.
Let's make sure. Let's make sure.
All right, well, thank you so much for your time.
Great talking to you guys.
And we'll see you next time.
Take care.
Bye.